I'll never forget that life-changing afternoon I was diagnosed with primary sclerosing cholangitis. You know, it's never good news when your doctor calls you and tells you to come into the office immediately after having a test to talk about the test results. So I called my sister and she immediately left work to meet me at the doctor's office. Before I left, I just remember crying because I knew that I was going to be diagnosed. And when my doctor told me that I have primary sclerosing cholangitis, I could see the pity in his eyes. And all the research I had done just came crashing to my mind. No known cause, no cure, bile duct cancer, insatiable itching, liver transplant, recurring disease. I just became numb. As he answered my sister's questions, their voices just trailed off into the distance. When we waited for the elevator doors to open, I could just feel my sister's eyes watching me. And just one look at her watery eyes caused me to break. We hugged and we cried until the elevator doors opened. And of course, it was New York City, so it was packed. And I just remember thinking how normal that day probably was to everyone else on the elevator. The doors opened and my sister pulled me into a cab to go home. I'll never forget that life-changing afternoon I had, and I know I wouldn't have been able to get through it without my sister. You never really know how important registering to become an organ donor truly is until you or a loved one gets diagnosed with an illness that might require one or even more transplants for no fault of your own. So I'm asking you from the bottom of my heart, please take 50 seconds to register to become an organ donor for the Organs for PSC Challenge.